What is good, everybody? That was not supposed to happen, but that's fine. But how are you guys doing today? We are going to be here for the week 4 recap. That being said, we've been doing this every single week, so we're going to go through each and every one of the games that happen on Sunday. If you're looking for Thursday night stuff, we do that usually on the Friday Q&A. But that being said, man, let's just hop right into today's video and let's start talking about some of these games from Sunday's slate. So as you can see, the first game up on the schedule right now that we are going to be talking about is the Minnesota Vikings. So the Minnesota Vikings, they go out still undefeated. If you would have asked me at the beginning of the year if I thought this was going to happen, the answer would have been probably not. I did not think that this team would be 4-0 going into week 5 of the NFL season, playing teams like Houston, playing teams like Green Bay. What is the other team that we played? San Francisco. It would have not been on my radar for them to be undefeated, but hey, I cannot complain. As you can see, I got the Addison jersey on today because Jordan Addison had a hell of a game in this one. Let's just start talking about the Minnesota Vikings in general and talk about some of the players in this matchup. Sam Darnold, he goes 20 for 28, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. Not a bad day from Sam Darnold. Now, it did feel like the Minnesota Vikings did take their foot off of the gas in the second half, kind of giving life to the Green Bay Packers, who ended up scoring 22 points in the fourth quarter. That obviously is not what you want to see if you are a Green Bay Packers, or I guess that is what you do want to see if you're a Green Bay Packers fan. That's not what you want to see if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan. So you end up seeing that happen. Obviously, I don't love that, but seems like that's going to get fixed. At least that's what Kevin O'Connell said after the game. He said a lot of that starts with him, and we'll see how that goes moving forward. But Aaron Jones, 22 carries, leads the way on the ground for the Vikings, 93 yards rushing. No touchdown, unfortunately, for him. I wanted him to get into the end zone because I felt like there might have been a chance for a Lambeau leap in his return, in his potential revenge game here against the former Green Bay Packers. But I think ultimately, he gets his revenge by getting the W here in Green Bay. And then for the receiving yardages, you had Justin Jefferson lead the way, 6 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown. Hell of a catch in the end zone. Was completely covered by a corner there for the Packers, and ended up coming away with that one, hitting a pretty long gritty in the end zone. Love to see that. Unfortunately, we talked about it a little bit in the Sunday live start-sit stream. Jair Alexander was ducking smoke, man. Jair Alexander did not play in this one. Probably, if he would have played, he probably could have helped him out a little bit. But he did not want the smoke in this one. And Jordan Addison came back and looked fantastic. 3 for 72 and a touchdown. He also had the rushing touchdown on the ground as well, 1 for 7. So Jordan Addison, hell of a day. If he is for some reason available in your fantasy football leagues, if he's on the waiver wire for whatever reason because he has been out due to injury, I don't know why he would be, but he is definitely a player that you need to be picking up and prioritizing because he is going to continue to feast in this offense. He's not going to always have 2 touchdown days, but he's going to have a lot of days like this where he is heavily involved. Aaron Jones did it in the receiving game as well, but then everybody else, not really huge contributors for the most part. Jalen Naylor, he's been a good player for us in fantasy for the last couple of weeks, but now that Jordan Addison is back, it looks like Naylor is going to be moving down the pecking order as we expected. But going to be interesting to see how this offense continues to improve. TJ Hawkinson sounds like he's a few weeks away. Once he's back in the lineup, this lineup will be at full strength, and we'll get to actually see how everybody is doing here in Minnesota and really see, I think, the ceiling or the max potential of what a guy like Sam Darnold could be in this offense. So let's talk about the Green Bay Packers too. Jordan Love, he goes 32 for 54. 54 attempts coming off of an MCL sprain is probably not ideal. There was rumors of potentially mixing in some Malik Willis in this one as well. He did not get mixed in at all. So Jordan Love, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. You don't want to see that type of interceptions. He didn't look great for most of this game. In fact, most of those touchdowns actually came in fourth quarter in garbage time. And I won't call it completely garbage time because they were trying to make a comeback, but it was a hefty comeback. And look, Jordan Love, if you have him in fantasy, you should be excited. That being said, this was not the best performance, but in fantasy football, you got the points, so you can't really complain, I guess, for that. Josh Jacobs, 9 for 51 on the ground. Could have got into the end zone. There was a play where they were on the 1-yard line, and LaFleur lost his damn mind. He was screaming at refs, chucking headsets, jumping up and down. He cost probably a Josh Jacobs touchdown in this one. They still ended up getting a touchdown on that drive. They threw it to Jaden Reed, who ended up scoring there, but that should have been a Josh Jacobs touchdown on the 1-yard line when LaFleur lost his damn mind. So 8 carries again for Emmanuel Wilson, 27 yards. He is still involved, and I think as long as both Marshawn Lloyd and A.J. Dillon, which A.J. Dillon is not going to play this entire year, but as long as Marshawn Lloyd is out, it's Emmanuel Wilson. And at this point, I don't know really what the argument would be for a guy like Marshawn Lloyd to take over from Emmanuel Wilson at this point in the season with Lloyd being a rookie. So for the receiving options for Green Bay, there's really not too much to talk about here. I guess there's quite a bit to talk about because you have Jaden Reed, who goes 7 for 139 and a touchdown, as we mentioned. Dontavion Wicks, if you've been a Wicks truther, if you have banged the drum for Dontavion Wicks in Dynasty or anything throughout the last 6 months, which this offseason there was a big Wicks crowd. 5 for 78, 13 targets, 2 touchdowns in this one. He is going to be a top waiver wire pickup this week, and rightfully so, because in this matchup, Christian Watson goes down with an ankle injury, and nothing confirmed as of right now, but early reports and everything that I'm hearing at the moment is that Christian Watson could go on IR potentially and miss an extended period of time. So if that does happen, Wicks is going to have a 3, 4, 5 week period here where he is going to be operating as the X on the outside. Jaden Reed's still going to play in his normal role. Romeo Doubs still going to play in his normal role, and Wicks will see a big uptick in involvement here in this offense. So he's going to be a player that you can add and really focus to try and get off of the waiver wire here this week. Other than that, Tucker Kraft, he has completely surpassed Luke Musgrave as the tight end 1 in this offense. He is operating as the number 1 guy. He's probably going to be a pickup off the waiver wire as well. If you need tight end help, Kraft looks like he's going to be solid. And Dobbs, probably a buy low candidate or somebody you can pick up off the waiver wire as well, where he is likely going to see this uptick in target volume over the next couple weeks as well. But the guy you want in this offense, or the 2 guys that you want in this offense that I would be prioritizing at all costs, are Jaden Reed is definitely by far and away the number 1 most talented wide receiver in this offense. Josh Jacobs feels like a screaming buy low at the running back position, and Wicks will be prioritized off the waivers. So really that's the takeaways from this game. I don't think that there's really much else for fantasy football purposes. So let's move on to our next one here. The next game on the slate for us was the Saints and the Falcons. So in this matchup, the Falcons end up winning this one 26-24. The Saints fall to 2-2. The Falcons, they get that dub and they go to 2-2 as well. So tied in their division right now. That being said, Kirk Cousins, he goes out there 21 for 35, 238 yards, an interception, 0 touchdowns. Not great. You want to see Kirk Cousins get into the end zone for whatever reason. Look, this is the craziest thing of the day, I think, for the most part. You have Cousins, who goes no touchdowns in the air. Algier and Bijan go no touchdowns on the ground, and there's no receiving touchdowns from Atlanta, and they have 26 points and win the game. That is insane that even happens here in this game. But look, Kirk Cousins, he's got to step it up, man. He's probably going to be started in a couple of leagues next week if guys like Anthony Richardson are out. Bye weeks are starting. Here in week 5, we have, I think, 4 teams on bye, so there is going to be some bye weeks involved. Kirk Cousins, we got to see you pick it up, man, if we want to feel comfortable plugging you in for a bye week or an injury here in the next couple of weeks. And I see we got George in the chat. George says trade Kyler. Short and sweet answer to this is no, not trading Kyler. Let's talk about the receiving options here. London, he goes 6 for 64, still getting it done. The 12 targets, you love to see that. That's what you want in fantasy. In your PPR leagues, he's still getting it done. But Darnell Mooney, they lean on Mooney, man, in the late situations. I feel like we've seen it a couple of times now where in that Eagles game, they leaned on Mooney down the last drive of the game. In this game, they leaned on Mooney in the last drive of the game. Like, Mooney is becoming a full-time player in this offense, and he's definitely somebody that needs to be picked up and played in pretty much all formats most weeks. You can flex him for sure. Ray McLeod, he goes 6 for 52, 7 targets there. Bijan 4 for 46 on the ground. Bijan getting out carried by Tyler Algier is not good. We're not panicking on Bijan Robinson, but he just hasn't lived up to the expectation, I think, of which we have drafted him for. He has not performed as a top 3 running back yet. The talent is obviously still there. This offense feels like it's still a little bit out of sync at times. Obviously, they're going to be out of sync when Kirk Cousins isn't throwing a touchdown in a game. But it's tough, man. You need to see them pick this up, and it's getting a little bit too far into the season now. We're week 5, week 6. Like, you guys got to get rolling, and we need to have Bijan rolling for fantasy football teams. He might be a player that if people are still very high on Bijan Robinson in a redraft format and they view him as a top 3 guy, I might be willing to down tier, trade away out of a guy like Bijan Robinson and upgrade another position. Something that I think would maybe make sense is you go from a guy like Bijan to a Josh Jacobs, who we said is a buy low. You throw in a wide receiver, and you can upgrade that wide receiver pretty significantly just based off of the name value and the name cachet alone. So that would be something that I would be doing. The other thing that we need to talk about is Kyle Pitts. He is an absolute nothing in fantasy football at the moment. Like, he is quite honestly becoming one of the most overrated, overvalued fantasy football tight ends in the space, and he's a player that I am so done with. I am so out on. I don't want any shares of Kyle Pitts, period, anymore. Like, I'm so done with this roller coaster that he is, and he's a player that we just cannot trust anymore in this offense. So, Rams, they say, do you still feel confident in Ayuk? I traded Ingram, Myers, and Dobbins for him, and Theo Johnstein in Dynasty full PPR 1.75 for tight end, Superflex start 11-12 man. Yeah, I mean, I still feel confident in Ayuk. You trading Ingram, Myers, and Dobbins, I'm not too worried about it. I think the usage is still there. The big days will come. It feels like I'm saying that a couple weeks in a row now, but the usage is still there, man. So I'm still confident in Ayuk. Darren hits a skull. You love to see it. Frankie says, should I burn my waiver on Chase Brown, keep him as a stash? I don't mind you burning a waiver on Chase Brown. We're going to have a waiver episode coming out here tomorrow morning on the channel. I'm going to hit the research for that. Make sure that you guys get a well-researched, in-depth waiver wire video tomorrow. But yes, Chase Brown should definitely be a player that you're comfortable burning a waiver priority on. But let's talk about the Saints, man. The Saints, they lose this one. We haven't seen the same magic that we saw in the first 2 weeks. Now, maybe we could chalk this up to, the first 2 weeks were better matchups, easier matchups. But Derek Carr, no touchdowns as well. So you have, them scoring 24 points. Now, they did get it done on the ground, so it's not as weird as the Atlanta offense. That said, Alvin Kamara, he gets 19 carries, 77 yards, a touchdown, and then Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's annoying ass comes back in 6 for 24 and 2 touchdowns on the ground, stealing some of the rushing work from Alvin Kamara. You absolutely hate to see that. That is something that we do not want to see if we have Alvin Kamara on our fantasy teams. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be common. Like, I think if Taysom Hill is active, Taysom Hill is healthy in this lineup, he's going to steal work at times from Alvin Kamara, and that's going to piss us off for fantasy football. Now, the thing is, Taysom Hill, he didn't finish the game because he did get hurt in this one. He did come off of injury to play in this one, and then he got hurt again. We're going to keep an eye out on that one. Shaheed, 2 for 14 on the ground. Really nothing else crazy there in the rushing. But the receiving, Chris Olave still hasn't found the end zone. 8 for 87, no touchdown, 10 targets. Shaheed, 11 targets, 8 for 83. These guys are players that we can just play every week. Olave, Shaheed, they should be auto starts pretty much every week as long as they're getting volume like this. 10 targets and 11 targets, that's what you want to see. Kamara being involved heavily in the receiving game as well. Great for PPR league, 7 for 42 on 9 targets. And then everybody else, forget about it. Rams House says, I'm going to be 1-7 LMAO. Should I try to trade Mason and Jacobs for BTGA and just tank RB's rest of season? Some league settings, as I said earlier in the Ayuk message. Going to be 1-7. Should I just trade Mason and Jacobs for BTJ and just tank? I would not be opposed to this. Jordan Mason and Jacobs, they don't have a ton of long-term value. I think BTJ is the real deal. 1-7, it's getting to the point where you are considering definitely throwing in the towel for the season. My general vibe or idea on when I'm going to be doing that in my leagues if I need to is usually about week 6. So I would maybe see how week 5 goes. If you go, 2-0 because you have a median, I'm assuming, right? That's why you're here, and I play with medians as well. But if you go 2-0 this week with the median and you're 3-7, you got signs of life. You can make the playoffs still, because then you're 1 week away from being 5-7. Like I wouldn't throw in the towel yet just because you have the median. So maybe give it week 5, week 6, and then you can kind of make that decision. But yeah, that's a trade I would do if you do decide to throw in the towel. So let's move on to the next game here. This next matchup is going to be the Rams and the Bears. This was the Caleb Williams W. He is undefeated at home in Chicago so far. Lost both games on the road. They win 24-18 against the Rams, and Matthew Stafford did not look good in this one. This was an ugly day in fantasy football for the most part for a lot of these quarterbacks. Derek Carr, no touchdowns. Stafford, no touchdowns. Cousins, no touchdowns. We just didn't get any of them from a lot of these older vets, big names. Caleb only threw one himself, 17 for 23, 157 yards. No interceptions, though, so that's fine. DeAndre freaking Swift, man. DeAndre Swift. When I thought I couldn't dislike this man anymore in my life, DeAndre Swift, I have him in your idiot league mates, as you guys know. It's been killing me, absolutely killing me. Going out there and giving me like 10 carries for 14 yards. I finally decide to bench DeAndre Swift. I put DeAndre Swift on the bench in idiot league mates. You know what DeAndre Swift wants to do? 16 carries for 93 yards, a touchdown, and in the air, leading the way, 7 for 72 as well. Are you kidding me, dude? Every week that I have you in my starting lineup, you're putting up 4 points, and then I put you on the bench and you want to score 30. Now I feel obligated to start you next week, and I bet your ass is going to give me 4 again. That's just the way that it's going to go. But obviously, if you have DeAndre Swift and you saw this type of performance, I don't think this is the norm. This is not going to be the expectation. If this opens up an opportunity for you to sell DeAndre Swift, I am selling DeAndre Swift. I do not want to hold him on rosters anymore. We've seen enough out of the offense that I think we know what the outlier is. This type of performance is the outlier for DeAndre Swift. So it is opening a sell window for me. And if it's there and if it's available, I'm taking advantage of it. Roschon Johnson, he gets a touchdown on the ground, 7 for 26. Not great. They said he was going to get more touches. That doesn't look like more touches to me. I guess we bought into coach speak, and they lied. Other than the DeAndre Swift receiving performance, receiving for the Bears wasn't fantastic. We felt really good about a lot of these options. DJ Moore was a start of the week for us. He goes 3 for 22 and a touchdown. The touchdown really just salvaged the day. I wouldn't classify that by any means as a hit on the start of the week because he did not perform to what I expected him to do. Keenan Allen goes 3 for 19 and nothing. Rome goes 1 for 10 and no touchdown as well. So really, we thought that this Rams defense was going to be a great matchup for the wide receivers. Nothing happened. Nothing happened for any of these receivers. Cole Kmet and DeAndre Swift led the way. And Cole Kmet, if you picked him up and played him, I don't know if that's the performance you wanted either. Probably not. 3 for 34. So overall, kind of an ugly performance from the Bears, but they still come away with the win here. And it's mainly thanks to DeAndre Swift and this run game for whatever reason, which is not their identity through the first 3 weeks. So definitely an outlier performance for the Bears, and this defense is legit. But let's move on to the Rams. Like I said, 1-3, 0-3 on the road. Stafford, not a great day, 224, 0 touchdowns and interception. He had another interception in this one that was in the end zone to Jaquan Brisker, and it was called back. That was a horrible interception. So that's not going to be on the box score, but it looked horrible. They called it back because Brisker, I guess, didn't establish himself back in bounds before he caught that football again. So they ended up giving it back to the Rams. Kyron Williams carrying the way while these receivers are out for the Rams, though. Puka, Kupp, they need him. And Kyron Williams is saying, I'm going to try and put the team on my back. He's keeping them in games. 19 for 94 and a touchdown in the air for Kyron Williams. Not too much. 4 receptions for 10 yards. But those 4 points, those 4 catches in PPR leagues, they're going to keep tallying up. Ronnie Rivers, 6 for 26. Here's the thing. I think right now we can probably just give up. If you haven't already, we can give up on the Blake Corum high-end handcuff narrative that we had coming into the season. he's not the high-end handcuff that we thought. He's not the high-end handcuff, or at least not being used as it right now. The only time he even had really any playing time was week 2, and then he has 3 other weeks where he's not really even seeing the football field at all. So I think Blake Corum, it is very safe to drop him in leagues. I don't even know if I'm picking up and stashing unless I have a luxury of having a lot of bench spaces. But the reality is with these bye weeks coming up and the injuries that have been tallied up, you probably don't have the luxury of stashing a guy like Blake Corum. So we can forget about that narrative for now. Atwell goes 4 for 82 on 6 targets. Whittington 6 for 62 on 8 targets. Demarcus Robinson 2 for 37 on 3 targets. The one takeaway that I have from this Rams receiving and a player that I want to prioritize on waivers is going to be Jordan Whittington. Jordan Whittington saw hit an uptick up to 90% of the snaps. He's being used in the slot role where Puka and Kupp have been used and been successful in past. The usage is everything that we want to see. It shows that there could be a breakout. There was a lot of preseason hype about a guy like Jordan Whittington. We haven't seen the production hit it yet, but I think he's a player that if you need to pick up and stream next week, he's a player that I'm picking up and streaming next week because I think Whittington is being used in all the right ways here in Los Angeles. Outside of that, Tyler Johnson, he flashed for about 1 week. He's good as dead. It's not even worth having him on a roster anymore. So that is the Rams and the Bears game. Let's move on to the next one. The next game for us is going to be the Steelers and the Colts. This game finishes 27-24. The Colts win. Good fourth quarter, 14-10 there. The Steelers were trying to make a comeback. It looked like Justin Fields was going to try and put that team on his back. Big thing in this one, coming from the Colts, Anthony Richardson, he starts off this game 3 for 4, 71 yards. It kind of looked like we might have had a bigger performance from Anthony Richardson loading. He had also rushed the football three times for 24 yards in that first part of the game. And then hip injury. Hip pointer is what it's looking like. It's sounding like he may not miss next week, so he may not miss any more time than just the game that he left early in. But we're going to keep an eye on that. Obviously, if Anthony Richardson misses this upcoming week, Joe Flacco, he stepped in this one. He is the handcuffed quarterback. He is going to be the guy that you want to pick up and maybe even play off of the waiver wire if you have the bye weeks, if you have the injuries, if you have Anthony Richardson. Because when Joe Flacco stepped in, he goes 16 for 26, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did what Joe Flacco does. Steps in, plays good veteran football, makes the wide receivers, look good. And he did. We saw signs of life from this wide receiver room. We'll talk about them before we actually go to the running backs. Michael Pittman goes 6 for 113 on 9 targets. Doesn't find the end zone, but Josh Downs, he goes 8 for 82 and a touchdown on 9 targets. Nobody else really outside of those 2 guys. These are the most talented players on the offense at the moment, Pittman, Downs. If Joe Flacco is under center next week, are going to be must starts. But I also will say, if you have Michael Pittman Jr., it hasn't been great up to this point. We have been talking about Michael Pittman Jr. as a potential sell in this offense. If somebody saw that performance and thinks that Michael Pittman Jr. is back, I'm selling. I'm opening up the window. I'm trying to sell out during this window. So kind of the same way that we thought. I can't remember who we were talking about just earlier, but DeAndre Swift, the same way that window got opened, this window opened on Pittman. I can try and get out of Pittman here, and I would suggest trying to get out of Pittman there. Jonathan Taylor, he goes 21 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown, continues to look good. The thing is, late in the game, he suffers an ankle injury. The ankle injury is all the same mechanics as a high ankle sprain. It's the same ankle that he injured in 2022 when he had surgery on it. Now, he had a tightrope surgery. The good news about this is he might have dodged a bullet because I was listening to Dr. Jesse Morris on Twitter, on YouTube at the Fantasy Experts or the Injury Experts. This is likely injury where maybe Jonathan Taylor will miss 1 or 2 weeks, maybe at max 3 if it really does hinder him. But it sounds like he might have dodged a bullet because he had that previous surgery. So positive for Jonathan Taylor. That is going to make Trey Sermon the next guy up. If Trey Sermon is the next guy up, obviously, we're going to be prioritizing him on waivers this next week. He is going to be a guy that we can probably play in a pinch. So Trey Sermon will definitely be a player that we're prioritizing on waivers this week as well, while we wait on some more news from Jonathan Taylor. Now let's look at this Steelers offense. Justin Fields goes 22 for 34, a touchdown, no interceptions. He felt like he was playing a really good game of football. A couple sloppy turnovers, and really just the fumbles. One of them he lost, the other one he didn't. But overall, it was just the fumbling. That said, he still, put out 300 yards. This is more passing yards than we've seen him do so far, and it's continuing to take the positive steps forward. So Justin Fields, I think he's a player that I'm comfortable with as my quarterback, 2, quarterback 1, maybe even, depending on the league size, the rest of the year. He has 10 carries on the ground for 55 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. You love to see that. Cordero Patterson gets worked in. Najee Harris, 13 for 19. Horrible day from Najee Harris. And then in the air, Pickens 7 for 113 on 11 targets. He continues to shine. Freiermuth goes 5 for 57 and a touchdown. Najee 3 for 54 being used in the receiving game. That was the best of his day, but it is George Pickens' world, and we're just living it here in Pittsburgh. So he is the player that you want. I still believe that George Pickens' ceiling is capped until we start seeing Justin Fields throw for multiple touchdowns a week, which we have not seen. We need to see Justin Fields get that 2-touchdown or that 3-touchdown passing game. That would be insane development that we could see from Justin Fields, but we just haven't seen that yet. But that would really elevate a guy like George Pickens. But for now, George Pickens feels like the volume and the talent that he has, the talent is more than what you are seeing in those fantasy football box scores on a week-to-week basis. So he's a player that I'm fine buying, playing as my wide receiver 2, maybe a flex every single week. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that consistent wide receiver 1 production that we feel like the talent of George Pickens has. So let's move on to this next game here. The game that I want to talk about next is the Broncos and the Jets. The Broncos and the Jets was one of the most boring, ugly games of the weekend. When you have Bo Nix go 60 offensive passing yards and a touchdown, and Aaron Rodgers goes 225 for 0-0, adding to the list of these veteran quarterbacks that throw no touchdowns this week, Breece Hall, all those guys, not a touchdown. It was a bad game. It was a very bad game. Bo Nix should not throw for 60 yards and win a football game, but I digress. Let's talk about the Broncos first, though, because they did win this one. Both of these teams now 2-2. As I mentioned, 12 for 25, 60, and a touchdown. We don't got to keep repeating that. Javonte goes 16 for 77, no touchdown. Jaleel gets mixed in. Tyler Bidet has a very scary injury on the sideline. He's taken out on a backboard. Sounds like he flew back home with the team. Things are okay. He was getting mixed in a lot more than we had thought. In previous weeks, was knocked out pretty early in this one. But Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, it's still a messy backfield. You like to see the separation in carries and the separation in usage from Javonte here. But I think a lot of that was just a dirty, ugly game that we saw from both of these offenses. The only player really worth relevant conversation in this Denver receiving game is Courtland Sutton. He's still a guy where I probably don't want to play him ever, but if you have to sneak him into a flex, he's at least getting the volume. 9 targets, 3 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. Days like today are going to be the good days for Courtland Sutton, where he finds the end zone. But a lot of these footballs that he's getting thrown his way are not really catchable. They're not good footballs. But he's the only guy really in the receiving game here that actually has been any type of consistent over the last couple of weeks. And it's really just consistent from the side that they are looking towards him. He's the first read, and some of those times he's getting the Bo Nix football that's catchable. And that's probably about a third of the time, as you see in the box score here. Talking about the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, we mentioned 225. He throws the ball 42 times in this one. Braylon Allen getting mixed in. Breece Hall getting mixed in. Breece goes 10 for 4. That is disgusting. Disgusting type of rushing usage from Breece Hall. Not even getting a half yard a carry. Braylon Allen continues to shine with the opportunities that he keeps getting. This feels problematic to me. I think Breece Hall, he's still finding a way to be productive at times. And maybe just because he'd been getting into the end zone the past couple of weeks. But this feels very problematic with the Braylon Allen emergence and him continuing to look good each and every week for fantasy football. The same way we talked about Bijan Robinson potentially being a player that we could tear down at the running back position to upgrade somewhere else, I might be exploring the same type of idea with Breece Hall moving forward. Receiving, though, we knew Garrett Wilson wasn't going to be in for a huge day. He had the Pat Surtain treatment. He goes 5 for 41 on 8 targets. You're getting it all sprinkled around the field, though. 8 targets for Conklin, 8 for Lazard, 5 for Mike Williams, 5 for Breece Hall, 4 for Gibson. This is what Aaron Rodgers does. He throws it around the yard, sprinkles everybody a little bit of usage, and the guys who have a big day have a big day. The guys who don't. Like, it comes down to who makes the big plays and who gets the touchdowns. In this one, nobody gets the touchdown. But Mike Williams had a couple big plays, so he obviously comes away with the most yardage, even though he didn't have the most targets. But it's messy here, man. I don't think this Jets offense and I don't think this Jets team was as good as people thought it was coming into the season. I remember right before the year started, they were projected to win the AFC East. That doesn't even look like it's a conversation at this point. Like, it looks like it's Buffalo and then everybody else. I think Miami even looked better than them when Tua was under center. But, yeah, man, this Jets team, I don't want to say the same old Jets, but I don't know, man. It ain't Super Bowl bound Jets that some people thought it might be. Now let's move on to this next game here, man. Let's talk about the Eagles and the Buccaneers. And if you guys were on stream with us in the morning, I said that this was a upset that I would definitely be betting on. I don't know why Tampa Bay was underdogs in this one. They seem to have Philly's number. That's just the way that's been over the last couple of years. They win this one pretty easily, 16-33. Tampa moves to 3-1. Philly is now 2-2. And honestly, them coming away 2-2 right now with the injury with the injury that they had to Lane Johnson, with the injury to Devonta Smith, the injury to A.J. Brown, it feels like you can live with that. I know Eagles fans are not going to be happy, and a lot of people are going to be coming at Jalen Hurts because he only goes for $150 and a touchdown. Look, this team has been banged up, and I think that they've been kind of getting by well enough in the meantime. Obviously, when you're playing good football teams like Tampa, which I do believe is a good football team, it's going to get tough at times. So that said, rushing for Philadelphia, 10 carries for Saquon, 84 yards. He had a 59-yard run. Not the day from Saquon that we've had. We can't really complain, though, because he's been giving us just banger after banger after banger week. And we had a normal week from Saquon. He adds on another 2 receptions for 32 yards. He had 4 targets. There was one play that they're looking back, and I hate when people do this, but they post the clip on the internet of a play, and it doesn't show the full field. It's not all 22. It's just a short clip where they can run a narrative or spin a narrative. The clip that I'm talking about, it looks like maybe Saquon could have had a long receiving touchdown if Jalen Hurts saw him. Obviously, it was not all 22, and like I said, I hate that type of thing, but it sounds like there maybe could have been more, but my assumption when I see things like that is that there probably wasn't. I'd like to see the all 22. But overall, Saquon gives us a normal human day for a guy that's really just not been human this entire season. He's been very superhuman. And then Jalen Hurts, he adds 8 for 20 and a rushing touchdown on the ground. That was the tush-push touchdown. Could have been maybe Saquon. I would have liked for it to be Saquon. But overall, that's going to happen at times. The leading receivers for Philadelphia, Dallas Goedert goes 7 for 62, no touchdown. Paris Campbell is the one who finds the end zone. And then it's a whole bunch of nobodies, man. Nobody we wanted to even see on the football field. Nobody we cared about. Nobody you probably should have been starting in the first place. Calcaterra, Paris Campbell, Jahan Dotson, John Ross. These are the names that were getting thrown around. And this is what I mean when I say Philadelphia has been playing with a very banged up lineup, and a lineup that probably has been getting by, while being in a bad situation. But Goddard, if you played him in a fantasy league, the 7 receptions for 62 yards, at this point in the season, getting that type of production out of a tight end, you got to be happy with that. That is good enough at the tight end position. So pretty solid there. Let's talk about the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, 30 for 47, 2 touchdowns. looked really good in the first half of this game, like really, really good. The other narrative coming in was Rachaad White, food poisoning, illness, Bucky Irving, hamstring, potentially Bucky Irving earning more reps. Well, they split it. 10 carries for 49 yards, 10 carries for 49 yards. Bucky Irving is the guy who finds the end zone. So as long as these guys are doing this, where it's a 50-50 split and we don't know who's going to get into the end zone each week and we don't know, really what's going to happen, it's going to be tough to trust either of them. Now, Bucky Irving, he's a guy who, people are going to bang the drum for. They're going to clamor over a guy like Bucky Irving. I don't ever feel like Irving is going to be this guy that's getting 70% of the snaps. He just doesn't profile as that type of guy. But it's obviously not what we want to see out of these players in the running back room. Little Sean Tucker appearance, but that doesn't really matter. In the receiving game, it's still always going to be Rachaad White. Rachaad White is just the better receiver. He always has been, so he's going to have a little bit of value there in your full-point PPR leagues. But we had good showings from both of the other receivers there in Tampa Bay. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, 6 for 69 for Godwin, a little bit back down to earth. I say good showings. It hasn't been great in comparison to what Godwin has done in previous weeks. But here's the thing. The touchdowns, they're going to diversify each and every week. Godwin has gotten a couple. Mike Evans went a couple weeks without a touchdown. Evans found the touchdown in this one. 8 for 94 in the touchdown on 14 targets. This was a good matchup. The secondary for Philly hasn't been fantastic throughout the start of the year, and we knew that we could play probably these guys in and bet on one or both of them to have a good week, and Mike Evans is the one who had the really good week. So overall, not a bad game. I think this Tampa team is for real. It's going to be a messy situation there in the running back room, and I think Philly is better than they look on paper. Once they get healthy, they have a bye week this upcoming week, so no Jalen Hurts. It'll be another week for A.J. Brown to rest that hamstring. Devontae is going to be able to rest off of the concussion. They're going to come back healthier in week 6, and I think we can kind of start seeing what this team should look like at full strength, because remember, week 1, when they were full strength against the Packers, they looked pretty damn good. And they haven't been healthy since that week, really. So that is not the Eagles team that I think is going to be the Eagles team for the rest of the year. So that's really my main takeaway. Maybe you can buy low on a couple Eagles if people are panicking in your fantasy football leagues. Let's move on to this next game here, though. We got the Bengals and the Panthers, and my God, the Bengals, they found a way to win a game. It just took going to play the Carolina Panthers to win one, and it was closer than I think people wanted it to be for the most part. Carolina, they dropped to 1-3, 0-2 at home. They haven't won a game in front of the home fans yet. 24-34. Cincinnati 1-3, 1-1 on the road. Overall, let's talk about Cincinnati first. Joe Burrow, he goes 22 for 31, 232 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception. Joe Burrow still has not looked good to me. Like, I don't think I've seen a game this year where I've been like, man, Joe Burrow looks good. Even last week against Washington, I don't think he's looked great. And a lot of the passing yardage that he got a big long play from Chase last week. He got a big long play from Chase again this week. It's not been a good looking Joe Burrow. And I'm a little bit worried about Joe, man. I'm just a little bit worried about him. On the ground for Cincinnati, 15 carries for Moss, 15 for Brown, 80 rushing yards for Brown, 51 for Moss, and Chase Brown takes both of the touchdowns. You hate to see that. We made Zach Moss a start of the week. This is why we just didn't project Chase Brown obviously taking the goal line work, but he did. And if those 2 touchdowns go the other way, you feel a lot better about the start of the week. But I would say that's a miss on that one as well. This is probably the worst week we have had all year on starts of the week. And I think we maybe missed 2 of them. I think it was the DJ Moore and the Zach Moss. That's probably the 2 that we missed here. So I can't remember who else I had off the top. We'll remember as we go through these games. But this is definitely the worst week we've had from start of the week. So that said, receiving for Cincinnati, Jamar Chase leads the way. 3 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. Like he said, he had the long one that went for 63. T. Higgins, 6 for 60. Nice game from T. Higgins here, usage-wise. 10 targets as well. Yoshavash, 1 reception. Eric All, Zach Moss. Zach Moss, the 4 receptions for 27 and a touchdown. Maybe we can use that as a reason to say that you could argue maybe we didn't miss on a start with Zach Moss, but even then, I don't know, man. What do you think? 10, that's what, 15 points? You feel fine with that, but I don't know. We'll see. Gesicki puts out a crazy line. 1 catch from -9. Whatever. Let's talk about Carolina. Carolina has Andy Dalton out there, 25 for 40, 220, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Normal day from Dalton. I think he's still going to be a player that we can continue to start in a pinch if we need him in fantasy football. Chuba, ever since we've had Andy Dalton under center, Chuba Hubbard has been lights out for fantasy football. 18 carries, 104 and a touchdown. He even had 3 carries on the 1-yard line on one drive where he didn't get in, so he could have had 2. But Miles Sanders, 6 for 32, not really being mixed in. You know what I would say is the way that Chuba Hubbard has been playing gets me really excited for Jonathan Brooks. So if you can go buy low on Jonathan Brooks, you can go pick up Jonathan Brooks, who should be eligible. It's not guaranteed he's back, but he should be eligible to be activated from the PUP here this week. He is a player that I'm keeping my eye on. He has potential league-winning upside in the fantasy football playoffs because I think he's more talented than Chuba Hubbard, and Chuba has been great with Andy Dalton under center. Deontay Johnson, 7 for 83 and a touchdown. Leggett gets 6 for 66 and a touchdown. 13 and 10 targets for those guys. I'm not sure if it was ever a question between Leggett and Mingo once Adam Thielen went down. To me, it was always Leggett, but it shows. It was Leggett. That was the right answer, and he's definitely a player that if he was not picked up off of waivers last week in your leagues, he should definitely be picked up off of waivers this week in your leagues because he is going to be involved when Adam Thielen is out. Chuba adds another 4 for 17. Again, those PPR points, just getting those receptions help tally that point up a little bit more. So overall, a good day. Big takeaways is really make sure you go buy Jonathan Brooks if you can for an affordable price because he has league-winning upside. Let's move on to our next game here, which is going to be the Jaguars and the Texans. The Jaguars and the Texans game was kind of a shocker for most of the day. We did not expect the 0-4 Jaguars to be competitive. Maybe this Houston Texans team is a little bit overrated. Maybe they're a little bit overrated because they've dropped to Minnesota, who I think was underrated. They kept this Jaguars team in a close game. I'm starting to feel like they're a tiny bit overrated. But that said, they still win this one 24-20. We'll talk about them first. CJ goes 27 for 40, 345 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cam Akers on the ground, 13 for 53. He's a damn cone. I'm so glad that Joe Mixon is likely going to be back here next week because Cam Akers, we should no longer start him. There's a reason Cam Akers was not successful in Los Angeles. There's a reason why he was not successful in Minnesota. There's a reason why Cam Akers has always been this mid running back, and it's because when he gets the volume like this, he doesn't do anything with it, unfortunately. So Cam Akers, even if Mixon is out next week, we could probably avoid playing Cam Akers, or at least I will be trying to avoid playing Cam Akers because I don't think he's that talented. Other than that, there was really nothing on the ground. They just didn't do much on the ground in this game. But receiving-wise, Nico Collins, 12 for 151 and a touchdown on 15 targets. This is Nico Collins' team. This is Nico Collins' really, this is like, I can't imagine many other players in fantasy football at the moment that I would rather have than Nico Collins. Nico Collins is a game breaker right now. Stephon Diggs, 5 for 69. He also had a rushing touchdown in this one, so Diggs put up a touchdown on the stat sheet as well. No Tank Dell. Didn't really matter because these two guys, Nico and Diggs, have been the top 2 guys in this offense, receiving-wise, for the last 4 weeks. And Dare Ogunbowale, he gets a catch that wins the game for the Texans in the fourth quarter. So overall, that's kind of what we saw. Schultz, we felt like he might have been flexible or streamable in a tight end matchup here this week. 3 for 34, not ideal, but I guess that is just the tight end position. That's the state of it, at least right now. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, he goes 18 for 33, 169 and 2 touchdowns. it's not even that bad of a day. Obviously, you know, you want to see more than 169 yards, but 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, only 1 sack taken. Like, it's not that bad of a day from Trevor Lawrence. He played fine. Tank Bigsby, he goes 7 for 90. ETN 11 for 50. There was a period of time here where ETN was on the sideline with his helmet off. They said it was a shoulder injury. Maybe Tank Bigsby was just playing a little bit better. That said, ETN is getting riskier and riskier by the week, and Tank Bigsby is just continuing to make a case that he should not be on any waiver wire in fantasy football. He should be on a team on the bench of every single league moving forward, because I think if ETN goes down, Bigsby has shown that he can be a guy in this backfield, and I think even without it, you know, Bigsby has shown that he can still produce even with ETN on the field. So Bigsby needs to be picked up and rostered in every single league moving forward, probably for the rest of the year. Receiving wise, Jacksonville, they had Brian Thomas Jr., who goes 6 for 86 on 9 targets and a touchdown. Christian Kirk, 7 for 61 and a touchdown on 12 targets. These are going to be the guys that continue to lead the way. BTJ and Christian Kirk, as long as Evan Engram is out, are just plug and plays moving forward. I think BTJ is the number one guy in this offense. Even though Kirk got 12 targets, you know, he works across the middle at times where Evan Engram will be in the future. But BTJ, man, he is the only guy on the outside as talented as that. 6 for 86, like I said. I'm not afraid of BTJ in any type of format, really. Always comfortable throwing him in my flex, and in a dynasty format, he's been one of the better looking rookie wide receivers, period, like up to this point. So obviously you have guys like Neighbors and Marvin, but like BTJ outside of those guys, like he's been one of the better guys. So I definitely like what I've seen out of BTJ up to this point. Doug Peterson is probably 2 losses away. I would say 2 losses away from probably getting his ass fired. And they asked him in a post-game interview where, you know, do you think about your job, whatever your job, whatever. Do you think you're going to lose your job is basically what they asked him. And he said, that's a weird question. I don't know why you would ask me that. It's like, bro, you ain't doing shit right now. You got to get it together, brother. But he might be the first head coach that gets fired this year. Washington Commanders and the Arizona Cardinals. Kind of a shocker to me. I thought Arizona was gonna win this game. I had the money line on this one, and that was not even close. Jaden Daniels looks legit, man. 3-1. The Washington Commanders, 42-14 against Arizona. That is now 1-3. Let's talk about Washington. Jaden Daniels looks like a fantasy stud, fantasy superstar. 26 for 30, only 4 incompletions in this game. 233 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Brian Robinson gets the 21 carries for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. Start of the week for us. We knew that Austin Eckler being out meant some more opportunity. You know what sucks to see? Jeremy McNichols getting 8 for 68 and 2 touchdowns. I wish one more of those touchdowns would have went to B-Rob, but I digress. Jaden Daniels on the ground, 8 for 47 and a touchdown as well. You love to see the rushing for fantasy football purposes. Receiving-wise, Terry McLaurin, 7 for 52 and a touchdown. He finds the end zone again. If he doesn't get into the end zone like he did last week, if he doesn't get into the end zone like he did this week, you don't feel good about him. But overall, he's been finding the end zone, so he's still been kind of staying afloat. I am still selling high on Terry McLaurin. If somebody in my league wants to buy Terry, I'm still willing to sell him at this point and get out of this offense that I just don't think is featuring Terry McLaurin the right ways. So I'm still willing to sell Terry McLaurin if somebody's willing to buy. Olamide Zaccheaus, he goes 6 for 85, no touchdown. And then really everybody else, it was Ertz, Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey. Brian Robinson puts in 3 for 12. Not as much receiving as I thought we would get out of B-Rob with Eckler out. But again, they were dominating this game, so the game script really just didn't require a lot of passing in general. So there you have it. Let's talk about Arizona, though. Kyler Murray, 16 for 22, 142 and a touchdown. He takes 4 sacks in this one, so not ideal there. James Conner, 18 for 104 and a touchdown. Good day from Conner. Benson mixes in for 9 carries on 50 yards. He is probably the clear handcuff now to James Conner and should be rostered in all leagues. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 5 for 45 and a touchdown. Not as big of a day as we thought Marvin Harrison Jr. could have. He still found the end zone, so we're okay with that. Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch, we said that they could probably be streamed this week. 3 for 38 and 4 for 38 ain't great. Let's just say that. So turns out they were not great streams either. But just not a good performance from Arizona in general. Not a great day from Arizona in general, and obviously it showed on the scoreboard because they got the ass blown out. Let's move on to this next game here. New England and San Francisco. San Francisco wins this one 30-13. New England is now 1-3. People are talking about, when are we going to see Drake May? Gerard Mayo was saying, not yet. Hold the horses. It is still Jacoby Brissett. San Francisco now 2-2 with 2 wins at home, 2 losses on the road. Let's talk about the Niners first. Brock Purdy, he goes 15 for 27, 288, a touchdown and an interception. Decent day for Purdy. Not great for fantasy football, but Jordan Mason, he gets 24 carries, 123 yards, and finds the end zone. Jordan Mason, again, the usage is there as long as CMC is out, which sounds like it could be for another month or 2. As long as CMC is out, Jordan Mason is still going to be a plug-and-play, volume play at the running back position, and he's still going to have days like this where he goes for $120 and a touchdown, especially in games where they're winning for the majority of the day like they were in this one when they were up 20-3 at halftime. Brock Purdy goes 5 for 11 on the ground. He's been running a little bit more as of lately. Debo comes back in this one. George Kittle comes back in this one. And overall, I would say modest days from them. Debo goes 3 for 58. Kittle goes 4 for 45 and a touchdown. He finds the end zone, so you feel comfortable with him, especially, him playing the tight end position, which we've talked about up to this point. Ayuk goes 2 for 48, 5 targets. Juwan Jennings goes 3 for 88 on 6 targets. He caught a long 45-yard pass in that one. So overall, Juwan Jennings, we said he probably couldn't start him with these guys back on the field. Obviously, you didn't get the day that you had last week, but 88 yards, 3 catches. He gave you, in a full PPR league, he probably gave you 11 points. So I guess you could have flexed him there and been okay with what you got. Let's move on to New England. New England, like I said, Jacoby Brissett under center, 19 for 32, 168, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ramondre Stevenson on the ground, 13 for 43, 0 touchdowns. This is the thing, man. I got a lot of pushback early on in the year about Ramondre Stevenson because Ramondre Stevenson was a player that I just was not high on. And the reality was because it was this offense that is bad, not projected to be a great offense. And Ramondre Stevenson, when they are actually playing teams that are not bad, which we saw in the first couple of weeks, he has been average at best. And this is going to be the Ramondre Stevenson experience. Antonio Gibson, sprinkling in for 6 carries as well. It's taken a little bit away from Stevenson. The 3.3 average is not great from Stevenson. And then Antonio Gibson leading the way, receiving 3 for 67. That was the worry with Ramondre Stevenson for me coming into the year. He goes 4 for 19 in the receiving game as well. Jalen Polk of the wide receivers, 3 for 30. Really, we've done this every week where we go to New England and we start talking about the receiving options. There's nothing to talk about here. These guys suck. You should not play anybody on this roster in your fantasy football lineups. It just really, quite honestly, you don't want any New England receivers. And I don't mind Gerard Mayo actually, saying like, we're waiting on Drake May, because what you have right now in New England, what you would roll Drake May out into is not a good situation. It's not, there's no support for him. You don't have, the receivers to help him. The offensive line is mediocre. Like, I'm actually okay with Mayo saying let's wait on Drake May, because you need to put him in a situation to succeed. I think we've seen that at this point now, that when teams build the situation for the quarterback to succeed, they put him in the right situation, it's easier. Coach Kevin O'Connell has even said that, organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. I think Mayo is trying to protect May and is trying to put his quarterback in a position to succeed. So I'm all aboard, just letting Jacoby Brissett go out there and keep losing games. It's only going to get your draft pick better. It's only going to, allow you to, in the future, in this offseason, go out and put a better team for May. Rams house says starting lineup when healthy is Kyler, Caleb, Mason, Jacobs, Higgins, Odunze, Ayuk, Ladd, McBride, Hockenstein, and either Parkinson, Justice Hill, or Polk. Should I throw in the towel and try to trade? I don't think you need to throw in the towel. I think you just have some guys that have been underperforming. Caleb has underperformed. Jacobs has underperformed up to this point. Higgins has been hurt. Adunze and Ayuk have underperformed. I don't think you need to throw the towel in. I guess it just depends on your record, and it depends on where you're at in your league. But the lineup doesn't feel bad. It just feels like they've underperformed for a month, or you've had some injuries. So let's move on to the next game here. My next game is going to be the Browns and the Raiders, and we only got 3 games left, so we'll talk through those ones. This one, Cleveland loses 16-20 to the Raiders. Cleveland was up 10-0 at the end of the first quarter, and it looked like they were going to win, but then they did nothing the rest of the game for the most part. Las Vegas was able to come away with one that they probably shouldn't have won. There was a Amari Cooper touchdown called back in this one that was kind of a crazy call, a crazy holding call. But whatever. Deshaun, let's talk about the Raiders because they won. Minshew goes 14 for 24, 130, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I'm sorry, man, but Minshew is ass. Minshew sucks. He's not a good quarterback. He is, at best, an average backup that you can feel like you have a decent backup when your starter gets hurt. But Gardner Minshew is not anything special. The Minshew mania that he had as a rookie has been completely overblown. The off-the-field personality from Minshew is likable, and so people really love Gardner Minshew, but he is not a good quarterback. That said, they might eventually... They won this one, so I don't think there's going to be any drastic changes, but I don't think Minshew is by any means much better than what Aiden O'Connell is, and they already hinted last week that there may be being a quarterback change in the future if things don't pick up. Maybe they go to Aiden O'Connell in the future, but you know what? This is a team that doesn't have the franchise quarterback on the roster. It's probably going to be a guy like Jalen Milroe, a guy like Shedeur Sanders, a guy like Carson Beck that next year will probably come in and be the starting quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders. Rushing for the Raiders, 5 for 60 for Addison. Zamir gets 17 for 50. The fact that he needed 12 more carries than Madison to get 10 less yards, it's nuts. Zamir White is a cone. He's not good. Madison is still, to me, I know he didn't get the work in this one. Madison is still the running back that I prefer in this backfield, but you probably don't prefer either of them. Other than that, receiving-wise, no Devontae Adams in this one, so Jacoby Myers goes 5 for 49 on 10 targets. Trey Tucker, 5 for 41. Trey Tucker can probably be picked up in fantasy football leagues and put on your bench anywhere as long as Devontae Adams is out, and or maybe if Devontae Adams gets traded, which could be a possibility here. Brock Bowers, what a disappointing day from Brock Bowers. When Devontae Adams is out and Brock Bowers has been leading the tight end position in receptions, you expect big things, and Brock goes out 2 for 19. Not a great day overall. Let's see what else we got here. We say, I have Connor, Deontay Pickens, and Garrett Wilson. I'm moving around my flex. Rank these guys in full PPR and who you would trade Deontay and Connor for if you could. Well, how I would rank these guys moving forward, I'd probably go Connor. I think that might be the order. That sounds so crazy, but Garrett Wilson's next month of football is so tough. Honestly, I'm not trading Deontay and Connor. What I'm doing is I'm trading Garrett Wilson away. I'm going to trade Garrett Wilson and see what I can get back and maybe just go for a running back. But I would just be trading Garrett Wilson away because I'd rather start Deontay and Pickens over Garrett Wilson right now. Frankie says, I got a trade offer right now. I receive Addison and Shaheed. I give up Moss and Shakir. I don't need running backs. I don't mind it. Addison and Shakir for Moss and or Addison and Shaheed for Moss and Shakir is a fine trade. Don't mind that at all. But let's talk about Cleveland. Cleveland loses this one. Like I said, Deshaun goes 24 for 32, 176, a touchdown and interception. He looked better than I feel like he's looked in past games. The offensive line in Cleveland is horrible. It is down bad. Jerome Ford goes 10 carries for 58 yards. Adds on another 7 receptions for 27 yards in this one. Doesn't find the end zone. But Ford had a decent day. Watson 8 for 32 on the ground. Donta Foreman 4 for 21 on the ground. Overall, just mediocre play. Nobody really found the end zone outside of that Cooper call that got called back. Jerry Jeudy leads the way again, 6 for 72, 9 targets. Cooper 4 for 35 and 8. Like I said, called back, so the box score lies to you a little bit. And then Jerome Ford in your PPR leagues continues to eat. Next week they have a pretty easy matchup as well, so Jerome Ford is probably playable next week as well. And Blake Whiteheart, 3 for 13 and a touchdown. That probably ain't gonna happen again, boys. That probably ain't gonna happen again. Let's move on to this next game here. The next one and the second to last game is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Chargers. And man, oh man, do we got something to talk about in this one. Very unfortunate. The Chiefs, they win 17-10, 4-0 on the season. Chargers dropped to 2-2. There's video of Justin Herbert showing a little bit of a character. We don't get the energy out of Justin Herbert sometimes, but he's slamming his helmet on the bench. I kind of like it. I kind of like to see Justin Herbert get a little riled up, because I like to see the passion come out, man. But that being said, the Chiefs win, but at what cost? At what cost, bro? They lose Rashee Rice for likely the remainder of the season. No official word yet. We've been waiting on MRI, and I'm actually just going to check it right now as we speak. But the word was potentially torn ACL. They can confirm that on the field. So the fact that we got that news last night tells me that they likely confirmed that on the field, and they're going to be getting an MRI today to see how much more damage is actually to the knee. But Rashee Rice looking like a fantasy football league winner where you drafted him in drafts. Done for the year. Pour one out for my boy. Joe Egan says, I'm trailing this week to the worst team in the league. I'm undefeated. Okay. There you go. I'm trailing by 16.94. I only have Jamo Williams to play left. Should I be hopeful? 16 points out of Jameson Williams? I think you can be. He says he needs 17 to cover. I think you can be. We've seen Jamo do that before, assuming it's PPR. But you definitely are nervous. But yeah, man, like I said, Rice likely done for the year. Let's look at the game, though. 245, 101 from Mahomes. Kareem Hunt takes over the backfield. 14 for 69. Clyde Edwards-Helaire on coming this way, I guess, really. He's going to be likely in the lineup again next week, maybe the week after that. This backfield is messy as hell. So people are going to want to chase Kareem Hunt. I think you can if you want to. But again, it's going to continue to get messier when CH starts getting spelled in here. Carson Steele, going 2 carries out here on 6 yards. He fumbled in this one. I remember that one. Yeah, he fumbled and he lost it. It seems like he got benched. P. Ryan getting carries. He finds the end zone. You don't want a Kansas City Chief running back right now. I don't think you do. I'm not burning a lot of waiver wire on priorities on Kareem Hunt. I'm not spending a lot of fab on Hunt. If you spent a lot of fab on Carson Steele last week, you don't love it. In our waiver wire video, when this happened, I said it was going to be messy at the beginning. I prioritized Hunt over Steele, but I don't know, man. Again, you just don't really want any of these guys. I think you just want the cheapest one you can get and see what happens. Receiving-wise, Travis Kelce goes 7 for 89 and a touchdown. Worthy goes 3 for 73 or Kelce goes 7 for 89. Worthy goes 3 for 73 and a touchdown. Gets the long one. Noah Gray, 4 for 40. Justin Watson, 2 for 27. It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting to see what Kansas City does now that Rice is likely done for the year. If he's done for the year, do they go after a veteran? You don't really think that there'll be an in-division trade between the Raiders and Kansas City where maybe Devontae Adams would be available. Maybe they can go get a guy like D-Hop. Maybe they can go get, another veteran somewhere else that might be a little bit unhappy. But overall, the way that they have their wide receiver room set up right now, Worthy, Watson, Sky Moore, you're going to need another guy. Juju Smith-Schuster's there. You don't feel comfortable with him either. There's a reason you let him walk in the first place. I don't know, man. I don't know. It feels like they need to go get somebody. Joe says, does Jamo score a tutty this week? Couldn't tell you, man. I don't got the time machine, but Maybe. Seattle's defense is tough, though. Seattle has a really good defense, but their defensive line's banged up. So I guess we'll see, man. I think to get to 17, you do need the touchdown, though, most likely. Herbert goes 16 for 27, 179 and a touchdown. But J.K. Dobbins on the ground, 14 for 32. We said to bench him this week. He did not have a good matchup, did not have a good week. Joe Alt not in the lineup, Rashawn Slater not in the lineup, and this is the result. J.K. Dobbins was a screaming sell high, and you probably should have sold him high when you could have. Gus Edwards goes 6 for 19 as well. In the air receiving, Ladd McConkey, 5 for 67 and a touchdown. Joshua Palmer, 3 for 36. QJ, 1 for 9. This is the QJ experience, ups and downs, not really knowing when to play him. And when Joshua Palmer and Ladd McConkey are in the lineup, there's going to be weeks where QJ is just not that guy. I don't even know if he is ever or will ever be that guy still. And that probably sounds like QJ hate, but I just think Ladd McConkey and Palmer are more talented wide receivers than QJ is at this moment. Rams House says, sorry for the late response, but for the question earlier, I'm 1-7, and the trade would be Jacobs and Mason for BTJ. Jacobs and Mason for BTJ. I don't mind it in a dynasty format. Like I said, in a dynasty format, I think there's an argument that BTJ is still the most valuable asset out of all of those guys. So I would still wait, like I said, one more week or 2 more weeks to see, what happens with that median. If you go 2-0 or if you find a couple wins in the next 2 weeks, then maybe you're competitive again. But if you want to sell now, I don't hate the trade. But there you go, folks. That is the Kansas City and the Chargers game. Let's go to the last game of the day, and that was the Bills and the Ravens. Josh Allen came back down to earth a tiny bit in this one. 180, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Mitchell Trubisky sees some action in this one because they kind of pulled everybody early in the fourth quarter. James Cook, again, a normal day from him as well. This Baltimore defense just kind of held them in check, and that's just the way that it kind of went. Shakir kind of got banged up in this one with an ankle injury as well. He goes 4 for 62 on 5 targets. Keon Coleman, 3 for 51. Dalton Kincaid, 5 for 47. And then really nobody else. Really, from Buffalo's side of the football, there just wasn't really anybody that performed at a level in which you were, very happy with. I guess Shakir is maybe the only one that you were he gave me 10 in a PPR league, so you're whatever, I could do worse at a flex position. But Ty Johnson gets the touchdown, and if that goes to James Cook, you probably feel better. If that goes to Josh Allen, you feel better. If it goes to anybody but Ty Johnson, we feel better. But unfortunately, just not a great day from the Buffalo Bills. But, hey, what can you do? They've been giving us a lot of great days beforehand. Now, Baltimore, 13 for 18 for Lamar Jackson. He goes 156, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry is the guy who really leads the day. There's a reason why he's on the thumbnail, right? 24 carries for 199 yards and a touchdown. Also add in a receiving touchdown. Yes, receiving touchdown for Derrick Henry as well. 3 catches for 10 and that touchdown. Now, Lamar also goes 6 for 54 on the ground, rushing with a touchdown on the ground as well. Justice Hill finds his way into the end zone receiving, leading the way, 6 for 78. It was where the hell is Zay Flowers? They got Justice Hill running downfield, catching these long touchdowns. And then Zay Flowers is out here 1 for 10. What the hell? But we knew that the Buffalo Bills secondary has been good. They were a tough matchup for receivers. But the big topic of conversation, really, I think that people are going to continue to have is when the absolute hell are we going to get Mark Andrews? Is it just done? Is the Mark Andrews thing done? I don't want to say that that's what's going to happen because I still believe that Mark Andrews is talented, but we just haven't seen anything. We haven't seen anything out of Mark Andrews up to this point. I mean, let's look at the year. 6 receptions, 9 targets, 65 yards. This is horrible. This is so bad for Mark Andrews. This is by far going to be one of the worst seasons that we've ever seen out of him. And it's just not. When are we going to have that game? I don't know. If somebody, I'm getting to the point where in a dynasty league, I'm probably going to try and sell Mark Andrews if I can get something for him. In a redraft league, I don't think we can start Mark Andrews at the moment. I think we need to bench him until we see the game. I think until we see the game, we have to bench him. But then again, we're talking about the tight end position where all of them are bad. So even playing a guy like Mark Andrews and getting a bad week, your opponent's probably playing a bad tight end as well. So, what are you going to do about it? Frankie says, do you think it'll be a shootout tonight or run heavy game with the Seahawks versus the Lions? I'm not really thinking it's going to be a shootout. I mean, it could be, but the fact that Seattle's defensive line is banged up and the Lions like to build their offense around the run game, I think we could have a big David Montgomery game. I think we could have a good Jahmyr Gibbs game. Kenneth Walker's going to be back in the lineup. They might want to run the football there too. The Seahawks obviously want to throw the ball a little bit more with Ryan Grubb there, but the secondary for the Lions and the defense for the Lions is pretty good as well. So it could be a kind of low scoring. If I had a bet over under, I don't know where the line is at right now. I guess we can just pull that up and look at it. But you got the Lions and Seahawks game right now. They have it at here we go. Detroit -4 at 46.5. I might go under the 46.5 on that one. It could go under that one. This game's going to be ugly. This game's going to be bad. But overall, those are the two games that we have tonight. So I got two of my most important leagues come down to the wire tonight. So I will be watching both of these games. I'm going to be rooting for some things to happen in these games. So if you guys want to root for my fantasy football interests, we need a big game out of Tony Pollard. I'm up by like 15 points. Maybe actually no. I think I'm up by like 7 points in that league. I have Tony Pollard, and we just need to have a big day to keep this win. And then in the other league, it's Seahawks and Lions. I'm up by like 15, and my opponent has Kenneth Walker and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I have Tyler Lockett. So I need Tyler Lockett to be within 15 points of those two combined. So if you want to root for Tyler Lockett and Tony Pollard tonight, you will be rooting for players on my teams to help me get some wins in some leagues I care about. But that said, good luck on the Monday nights for you guys. If you have players that you're rooting for, let me know in the comments down below of this video if you watch the replay. Also, keep in mind, the well-researched waiver wire video is going to be coming out in the morning tomorrow, about 11 a.m. Eastern time, so keep an eye out for that one as well. We'll dive deep into these waivers and tell you the top 10 guys that you need to be prioritizing on the waiver wire and trying to pick up this week. Overall, we're going into week 5. We're getting into the swing of things, folks. We need to start seeing these wins tally up. We kind of know enough about these offenses, about these defenses now too, that we can start making some better decisions, making some long-term, predictions for how to win these fantasy football leagues. So stick around. If it's your first time on the channel, you're watching this for the first time, one, do me the favor, support the channel by hitting the like button. The like button is free to hit. It is the easiest way to support this channel, and it really does help. So a little thing for you to do, just go down and hit the like button for me. Also, make sure you are subscribed. That way you never miss any future episodes, because that is the #1 way to support the channel, is being subscribed to the channel. And last but not least, go join the Discord. Any other questions that you might have, I do have a free Discord linked in the description. I'm in there helping you guys with your fantasy football questions as they come in at any point of the day. So I don't have to be live streaming to help you with a question. Whenever you got that question, you throw it in the Discord, and I can help you out with that. So like I said, free to join, no risk in doing that. All of that being said, nothing else for you today. I will see you on our next episode for Waiver Wires tomorrow morning. But until then, peace out.